this is my page, and I have the forum now to talk about my side of the story. Um, I was blocked from our community, and I'm not going to go into names and specifics because this is public, and it isn't my intention to make anyone look bad. Everybody has reasons for doing things, especially in the moment, and they might regret them later. I don't know. But my only crime was loving a cat too much. Is there even such a thing? I don't think so. Do you? I loved him with all my heart. And you really have no idea the impact he's had on my life and the impact his death has had on my life. A few weeks later, I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling to feel normal. There's a lot of people who love this boy. Just because he wasn't ours doesn't mean we couldn't love him with all our hearts. And so because his life was shared with ours, a lot of people had opinions and something to say about his treatment and care. That's not inherently wrong, because when you care, you say something, you step out and step forward away from the crowd and voice your concern. It takes a great amount of courage to do something like that. It doesn't make you a monster. It doesn't make you a bad person. It means you have courage to stand up for your convictions. Because another person cannot handle that, because they cannot handle the truth, they shoot the messenger. Or they do not like that truth, or do not agree with that truth, they shoot the messenger. As long as they follow the crowd, as long as they don't have their own opinion, as long as they stay quiet, everything's fine. But I've never been that person. I've had to advocate from when my son was very young because he was diagnosed with autism, so I've always been a fighter. And it may come across as aggressive, but that's because I've had to fight some battles over the last 20 years, and actually maybe the last 18, 19 years. And you tend to be a little more aggressive and vocal when you have to carve your own path in this world, because the world doesn't accommodate people who are different. You're always fighting for your rights. You're always fighting for equality. You're always fighting for justice. Because a lot of people don't understand. And as long as it doesn't affect them, it doesn't matter so much, does it? They're just glad it's not them. I am here in Florida right now, and I had a conversation with some retired teachers at a card game, and one of them actually said that special needs kids should not be allowed in mainstream classrooms because they're disruptive to the other children. That's just one sign of ignorance in the world. And this is just an example, one of hundreds, where people don't know what they're talking about. So what do I say? Do I say, okay, here's another battle on my hands, let's go? And that's what I do sometimes. I don't let things go, so I say what I think. And of course that's what I did. I didn't do it in a mean way, but I did say that special needs kids are entitled to an equal education as all other children. And it's good for them to be in a mainstream classroom because that is the way the world is. It's mainstream. They shouldn't be segregated. We're in a different world these days where they don't throw people who are different into institutions and forget about them. We're a lot more enlightened and compassionate, I'd like to think. So, as somebody who works as an educational assistant and works with special needs kids in classrooms, I know how it is. It's very difficult, and they need people like me. If everyone thought like her, I don't know what kind of world we'd be living in right now. Yeah, it's the audacity of people is astounding, and that's why you have to kind of step back sometimes and not get engaged. But it's really hard not to be bitter. It's hard not to be bitter because you feel everyone's against you. People don't understand. They don't care. It's like, as long as it's not them. And someone else said at the same card game that all citizens of the U.S. are entitled to carry arms. And it's like, I don't know about that, you know. I'm like, I don't think so. The reason the United States has the highest gun violence in the world is because of their right to bear arms. That's another story. But it's just, you know, one of them said to me, "No, I don't know how you can do that, how you can work with special needs kids. Hats off to you. All it takes is a good heart." They don't see the rewards. They only see difficulty. But really, there's difficulty with life, with other people who don't have a disability. There's difficulties everywhere you look. It doesn't matter if a person has autism or any other disability. People can be a pain in the ass, even typical. In fact, way worse many times. So, I don't know. I went to this group because I found this boy, and something about him just immediately resonated with me. He grabbed my heart. First time I saw him, he just had this pull. He had some kind of effect on me that I had to be part of his life. I had to see what he was doing every day, and he was just such a joy. I found him at a time where I had a lot of struggles, and some days seemed hopeless, and I just didn't know how I'd make it through some days. I mean, and he was my saving grace. He was like someone threw me a life jacket or a life preserver in rough, stormy waters, and I made it through them because of him. An innocent, sweet little cat changed people's lives. And for those of you who don't have animals or don't understand the human-animal bond, it's something you're missing out on. That's my opinion. But, you know, I'm sure there's people who look at me and go, you know, why does she love this cat so much? What's up with her? That's not normal. Whatever they want to judge, you know. I connected to him. He was special to me, and nobody can call me strange for that, or not normal, or say it's wrong. I just loved him with my heart, and love isn't wrong. We need more of that in the world. We need more people like that. So every day I would be part of live streams on YouTube, and I would watch watch him from afar, be part of his life from afar, and everything he did made me laugh, proud, in awe. He was such a smart boy. And honestly, I've had cats. I've seen a lot of people's cats online or friends' cats, and I've never ever seen a cat like this one. He was a special boy. He was so special. He did things that you wouldn't imagine a cat could ever do. And one day I thought to myself, when he dies, it's going to be a horrible thing for everybody. It's how are we ever going to make it through that? But I didn't expect that day to come so quickly. I thought it was far into the future. But he only turned 10. He's got at least 10 more years. And then we found out he had lymphoma. And it seems as quickly as we heard, he went so quick. And as someone who's gone through skin cancer and knows a little more about it, I was just offering advice. And the only advice I had was, I think you should take him in, not wait a week until his appointment. Because I felt that waiting isn't good when he has this unforgiving disease that continues to ravage his body minute to minute. Ultimately, it was her choice. But I know in the same situation, I would have done things differently. No one's to blame. We're all different. We do things differently. But I would have taken the aggressive route. At least tried to see how he did. Again, that's me. Now, I know that saying this will upset people. And I'm sorry if it does, but this is what happens when you're online and on social media and in public and stating views. She herself gets letters and emails and posts and all kinds of things that question her, put her down, make her feel bad. That's the nature of the beast when you're out in public and you share your views and you share your life with people. You're going to get good and bad. And that's not just on social media, that's in everyday life. That's just life. I have heard from many people over the years trying to tell me what to do with my son, how to raise him. And one time he had a meltdown in a grocery store. And a lot of people don't know what an autism meltdown looks like. They think it's just a typical tantrum, but it's not. Tantrums are when children don't get what they want and they start screaming, jumping up and down, getting upset because they didn't get the chocolate bar. And the autism meltdown is a child or a teenager being overwhelmed by the environment. Too much noise, the lights are too bright, sensory overload. They just melt down because it's too much for their brain to process. And that's why they get upset like that. And especially when they're nonverbal, they can't communicate anything, so they melt down. It's the only way they can cope. So one time my son had a meltdown in a grocery store, and this man just went nuts when he saw that, and he reacted very negatively, and he said things, and was saying, can't you control your child? This was when my son was about 15, 14. And then people were saying stuff like, what a bad parent I am. And that gets to be very difficult when you're in public and people do not know you or your son, and they judge you, and they have no clue what you go through. They have no idea. All they see is this one moment in time where they encounter you in a grocery store. They're just a blip on your radar. But yes, so many of these blips constantly wherever you go, it just gets to be too much sometimes. So it has nothing to do with my ability as a parent. It has nothing to do with my being a bad parent or a bad person. My son's meltdown is perfectly normal. So what do you do in those situations? Fight or flight. A lot of times I pick flight. I say to myself, they're not worth it, it's not worth it. I mean, how many times are you going to go get into fights with people? It's exhausting. Why do I need to do that all the time? But it also hurts that you're constantly being judged and people are constantly weighing in on you. You're like a target wherever you go. It's so visible, my son's autism. He looks like all other teenagers, but his behaviors give him away. So I fight or flight, but I try not to be mean because I don't like to stoop to that level. I lead with compassion and kindness, or at least I try my best to. So I use these as teaching moments where I educate people on, do you know what autism is? Have you heard of autism? And I try to explain to them why he melts down, what autism is, and that diffuses the situation in general, because when people, know there's a reason for it and they understand it's a disability or an intellectual disability, they take their foot off the gas. They back down. They usually feel bad. They apologize. My intention isn't to make them feel bad. It's to educate. And maybe the next time they see someone who is different, they will react differently because they're armed with knowledge this time. I admit I didn't know much about autism either before my son was diagnosed with it. I had heard of it. Other people's kids had it. It had nothing to do with me. But when my son was diagnosed with it, I became an expert. I quickly read up on it. I learned all I could. To this day, I'm still learning. I'm never going to stop learning. It's always a learning process. Every day there's something new. And there's so much information out there. Contradicting information. But as a parent, it's up to you to sift through it all. You're going to hear all kinds of opinions. You're going to read all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to make your decisions. Informed decisions. And so, I'm not proud to admit it, there are some days that I get angry and I tell people off. And it feels good. Does that make me a bad person? If someone is very, very mean and they get me on a bad day, well, I melt down too, not just my son. And there are times people do deserve it. And I will stand up for him every time. I won't back down. And so, I'm a fighter. That's good. But it's also a bad thing because you tend to be bitter a lot and you tend to be always negative and looking at people negatively, thinking they're judging you or they're thinking you're less than, whatever it is. It may not even be true. Because on the flip side, there are a lot of very kind people out there, and we've encountered them every single day. people that work with my son, most kind-hearted people I've ever met, giving, loving, patient, compassionate, all the things a human being should be. And we've been lucky in general. A lot of people seem compassionate in public when they see him, and they smile, or they talk to him, and they engage. So I'd say for the most part, there are a lot of good people out there. So back to the cat. I joined his page because it was a place of peace. It was a refuge for me. It was a place to go and not be judged. And I guess maybe I took it a little far and talked too much about my life and myself. But I thought I was amongst friends. And I shared some of my personal things, issues. They knew a lot about my son and my struggles in life. I think we all need groups, or sometimes we need a support system. And I don't think this maybe was the right fit for me in that way. I'm real, I say it like it is, and a lot of people don't like me for it. And again, that doesn't make me a bad person, it just makes me who I am. When you look at how people behave, there's a reason they behave that way. There's always a reason for behavior. And maybe if you take the time to understand why they're acting like that, what drove them to that behavior, you might be a little more empathetic. If someone cut you off on the road, or they swerved into your lane, or, made a mistake of that nature, maybe they didn't get enough sleep, maybe somebody died in their family, maybe they just got fired. Any reason at all could have determined that behavior that day. But people are just quick to judge and get angry and retaliate. But if you see reasons behind behavior and what drives it, it makes you understand a person better and maybe be more compassionate to their plight. I feel that a lot of the lessons we learn in life are learned through hardship. They're learned through going through hard times and being humbled by life, being dropped to your knees, reaching a rock bottom where you have to claw your way out. And in that rock bottom, you discover a lot about yourself and a lot about what really matters in life. And you start to see all the shallow and all the egotism and the things people are so concerned about, at the end of the day, are meaningless. A lot of people are just not enlightened. I feel that the people who are most enlightened are those who suffer in some way, those who are different in some way, those who are misjudged by society, those who are down and out. It's just a cruel world out there for anyone who's different. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to be better than the next person. Nobody's better. You strip everything away, we are all human beings, and we are all equal. Such a simple concept, yet so difficult for people to really see or understand or live by. So, the one thing I took away from this community and this cat is the joy he radiated and the light he radiated in this world. He brought people together from all across the globe who were joyful, who were happy to see him, who looked forward to his posts, who looked forward to seeing what he would do today, who looked forward to seeing him do the things he does best, being himself in all his glory, even when he was grumpy. We loved him for all that he was. A lot of us were saved by him. Quite a concept. We came to him because we were searching for something, and in him we found it. Our salvation, our joy in life, our will to go on, something to look forward to. We all need that. We all need that. We all need hope. He was hope. He wasn't just a cat. He signified so much more for every person. And each person has a reason that he touched them so much. It's very personal. A lot of people say he saved them during the pandemic or during a hard time or when someone passed away or when they needed a friend, he was there. And he never did anything to hurt you or judge you. He was just there to make us smile, especially on the hard days. I've loved cats. I've had my own. Who could ever thought you could love one from afar so much? And I did. I was a loyal follower. Everyone knows what kind of follower I was. It speaks for itself. I don't have to say anything. And what everyone should know as well is that everything I've ever done was meant with love and good intentions. It may not have been received that way, but it was definitely meant that way. The love I feel for this kitty, I will take with me for the rest of my days. He will be in my heart. And I will never forget him. I will keep his memory alive. It's amazing here in Florida how many butterflies I've seen. And butterflies are a sign that an angel got his wings. He loved butterflies. He played with his butterfly. He just adored it. And that's what reminds me of him. I feel bad he was cheated out of a life, a long life. 10 years, barely 11 years, isn't very long. But in that 11 years, he achieved so much. More than so many people. He left his mark on all of us. He transformed me. Because of him, I became more creative. I became happier. And there was a positivity about me that I hadn't had for a long time. I suffer with depression and anxiety, and this little guy took it away from me. He took it all away. Of course, now that he's gone, the grief is back, and it's much worse. And I'm struggling to find my way forward. Every day I would look forward to seeing what he was up to see his posts and his conversations, his little chats with his siblings. He was everything. And now he's gone. Someone like me with depression, he made a difference. He was a lifeline. I got to meet him, and that has to be one of the best days of my life. Sat on my lap, and I caressed his fur, and I fed him a treat, and he bit my hand. He sassed me. What an honor that was. I'm just so glad I got to meet him. So blessed. How is it possible he's not here anymore? It's still hard to believe and accept. I think there's still some shock involved. It's only been a few weeks, but it's still hard to accept. All I did was love him. All I did was contribute. I put posts up. I took his bag to Florida, made posts. I was active in the community. It was my happy place. And now it's gone. Because my opinion wasn't welcome. And I was made to feel like a bad guy for voicing it. I just want everyone to know I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good person. And to those who want to believe what they want to believe, you're free to do so. I won't hold it against you because you don't know me. You have no idea who I am in real life. It's easy to make assumptions when you're looking at someone on social media. And all you see of them is a little glimpse, a fleeting glimpse. Everybody can dislike me if they'd like, but you can't take away my love for Oreo. He is in my heart. He remains here. And I'm not ashamed of the way I loved him. I loved him with all I had. And loving with all you have isn't wrong, and it's not bad. When you have people watching from afar like that and involved in his life daily, you're going to have people commenting and saying things. That's just the nature of the situation. A lot of people felt like he was their cat. And he was. He was also ours. He may not have been owned by us, but he was ours too. And we loved him too. And we're devastated by his loss too. I hope the legacy we take from him is kindness towards one another and bringing people together instead of dividing people with hatred and bitterness, misunderstanding, and unforgiveness. I think the world is already full of too much hatred and judgment. I think people should try a little harder to be kinder and less judgmental. And maybe try to understand the reasons behind why people do something instead of condemning them without knowing the reason or even trying to understand it. My reason. was because I loved him. I can't see a better reason than that. You want to fault me for loving him that much? Go ahead. Do you want to block me the rest of my life for loving him that much? Go ahead. All I was a good person and a good friend until I spoke out. I'm always going to speak out. That's who I am. No regrets. So thank you for listening. For me venting here. It's probably a little long. I'll probably have more to say, so maybe I'll make some other videos at some point. But thank you for listening, and I hope everybody is well. Bye-bye.